Preparing a pitch is an important task so that players can have a successful game. When they look at a pitch, if it looks good, they'll generally be satisfied and go into the game with a positive frame. And so that's our goal. Hopefully these steps and the video assist you in preparing a suitable pitch and give you some tips how to first prepare a pitch if it's for the first time, or continual preparation of pitch. So enjoy the video and I hope you do well in your pitch preparation. Stringlining the pitch is the first step in pitch preparation. So the best way to do this is initially put corner pegs in the corner of your wicket table, and that will then define the area. Use a tape measure from the corner across to the other corner. Put either dots of paint or a flat valve peg into the pitch on the end of your wicket table. Once you've got those, you can put a string line to designate the left of the pitch, peg in one end and a peg up the far end of the wicket table, and then do the same on the other side of the pitch. So ideally you'll have a string line that goes 23 or 25 metres long, depending on the length of your wicket table, and 10 feet wide. So that'll be 2 string lines to define the edge of the pitch. This defines the area that will allow you to cut and roll that area in the preparation of the pitch. Watering the pitch is probably the most important part of pitch preparation. We need to wet up the soil profile, which is clay. Clay has a low infiltration rate of around 2 millimetres per hour, so it needs to be watered slowly. The best way to do this is with a handheld hose, walking up and down the pitch, and once water puddles, that's when you stop, let the water sink into the profile, maybe an hour later depending on the weather conditions, and repeat that process. To thoroughly wet up the pitch, that might need to be done 5 or 6 times over the day at the initial start of pitch preparation. In hot conditions, we'll need to reapply a lot more water, but that initial large wet up, regardless of the time of year, is crucial. If you put a lot of water on the wicket table at one time, most of that water will run off because we've got a low infiltration rate. So it's very important to wet it up slowly and over a long period of time. You can check how much moisture has soaked through the profile by putting a metal stake or a screwdriver into the pitch to look at how much water has infiltrated through the profile. Once you've wet the wicket table up, you'll then start the rolling preparation. It's important to keep the plant healthy through the preparation so the plant roots take moisture out of the profile, and that allows deep drying and therefore a hard profile. If you roll and the plant gets stressed, whether it be ryegrass or couch grass, we then water lightly the pitch to allow the grass to come back to life and have some moisture so it can function normally. Rolling the pitch is an important task in pitch preparation, and it is very important to choose the correct time to roll for your first roll and subsequent rollings. If the pitch is too wet, then we'll blacken the surface. We may damage the pitch and the clay may stick to the roller. If the pitch is too dry, there will be no indentations in the pitch when you're rolling, and therefore we won't be compacting and there will be little to no benefit from the rolling. So the initial roll would be possibly a day or 2 days after that initial wet up. Sometimes you could do it later in the day if it is really hot, but it really depends on weather conditions. For your first roll, you should be able to push your thumb into the surface slightly and make a slight indentation, but not too soft and certainly not with moisture on the surface. When you roll, you'll probably leave creases on the outside edge of the roller. That is okay as long as they are not too big. If you do get on with the roller and you're damaging the pitch or you're bringing up too much black surface, then you should stop straight away and wait until it dries out a little bit. The weight of the roller will depend on what you've got, but generally a walk-behind motorised roller will be in the vicinity of 1 to 1.5 tonne, and that's adequate to prepare a pitch. If it's late in the week and the pitch is underprepared, then a walk-behind push roller can get on obviously before a heavier roller. Some clubs have ride-on rollers that may be 2 to 3 tonne. They're certainly good and they can be used at the initial stage of preparation, or if you've got 2 rollers, the pedestrian motorised one in the initial stages and then the heavier ride-on roller in the later stages of that roughly 10-day pitch preparation. What will happen with the rolling is you'll stress the plant out, but the plant will then suck moisture out of the profile and harden up the pitch to depth. We certainly want our hardness not to be just on the surface through evaporation, but we want it deeper into the profile, and the roots take out that moisture. So it's important in the early stages of preparation that we keep the plant healthy. If we roll the pitch when it's too wet, we can certainly get undulations or a wavy surface, and the pitch won't compact properly. When we're rolling, we generally roll up and down, which is known as longitudinal rolling, so it's simply straight up and down the pitch. It's the most efficient, and rolling times are generally between 20 or 40 minutes. That initial roll might be only 5 to 10 minutes. Other rolling options are cross rolling, and you can simply go across the pitch, only 10 feet across and 10 feet back, slowly working your way up the pitch. This helps take out any undulations in the pitch, and instead of just rolling up and down, cross rolling is a good practice. This should be done in the early stages of preparation, where we get indentations on the side of the roller, and therefore we're actually making some movement in the levels of the surface, trying to get it flat. Diagonal rolling is similar to cross rolling. It just goes at roughly a 45 degree or any degree that you like. So generally I'd cross roll or diagonal roll early on in the process. Longitudinal rolling is more efficient, and therefore some people don't do as much cross rolling because of time constraints. A good pitch ideally would take around 15 hours of rolling. Obviously volunteers and smaller clubs don't have that amount of time, so therefore it's important to get on at the right time, and if you can get 5 or more hours of rolling, that will still create a reasonable pitch, but the more rolling at the right times, the better the pitch should become. The pitch should be cut with a cylinder mower that gives a fine, accurate cut. Also, the wicket table should be cut with this same mower, but at varying heights. The height could be from 10 to 15 mil on the wicket table. It depends on the grass type you've got, the time of year. Certainly at the start of the season, it's good to have your wicket table a little bit longer to protect the wicket table, but the rule of thumb is somewhere around 10 millimetres in height once you're into the season for the wicket table. Once you've string lined your wicket table out, and you're looking at cutting it, you need to cut up and back on the same cutting line. Cutting in one direction then coming back in another direction gives that light and dark appearance. That's not what's required on the wicket. So what we need to do is cut up the wicket and back on the same run, so we're folding the grass in the same direction. The next cut is next to it, up and back on the same run, and therefore we're folding all the grass on the wicket in the one direction. The wicket table itself may be cut up and back next to it, so that we have a light and dark stripe that certainly is visually appealing for the rest of the wicket table. Once we start our pitch preparation, we need to slowly reduce the height from 10 millimetres over the pitch preparation down to match day height. If we cut too much off in one go, it can stress the plant out, and the plant won't work for us to take moisture out of the profile. So slowly reducing the height is important. Generally, you'd cut down from 10 millimetres down to 8 millimetres, and you'd start watering and rolling at 8 millimetres, and then over the following days slowly bring it down to the match height. Match height is a point of much discussion. What height do you have your pitch? Well, generally around the 4 millimetres is okay. Some people have it a bit longer at 6 millimetres. The benefit of this is your grass recovers more quickly after the game. The downside is if there's moisture in the pitch and it's too long, the ball will seam around off the pitch, and that long grass will aid in making a pitch with plenty of life in it. Some people will cut a little bit lower than 4 millimetres, possibly for a 1-day or T20 game. The downside of this is the grass will be slow to recover. So at 4 to 6 millimetres is generally the guide, and if you can get a straw dry pitch, certainly 6 millimetres is suitable. Some people will leave their practice wickets a bit longer at even 8 millimetres to allow them to last longer. As long as they're dry and hard, they should still play reasonably well. Cutting the pitch should be done numerous times in leading up to the game, starting at 10 down to 8 to 6 to 4 over about a 8 or 10 day time frame, which is your pitch preparation time, and the final cutting probably would be on a Friday and then on a Saturday morning for game day. Grass clippings on the pitch help make the pitch look the same, keep the shine on the ball also. Where the grass clippings come in is that they will go on the barer areas, and then they will make the pitch look the same on those barer areas as the grassed areas. Otherwise, if you didn't clip up, you would have straw or greenish areas on the pitch and then black clay soil areas. Therefore, the pitch would look poor and would play differently. So how do you grass up? It could be done on the Thursday or the Friday before the game. I generally grass up on the Thursday, weather permitting. Some people like to grass up their pitch earlier on in the preparation, maybe on the Monday, and then their clippings are down the whole week. So what we need to do is make sure we've got in those bare areas clear clay soil, and once we give the pitch a quick water and wet the profile up down to a couple of millimetres, that black clay will become sticky. With our clippings, we then rub them with hand or on a tray with a sieve and put them all the way up the pitch or just in the bare areas, depending on how much grass cover you've got. Have the roller at the end of the pitch. Once you've got your clippings out, with your heavy roller, quickly roll the pitch. It only needs a 5-minute roll because the pitch surface is a bit moist. Those edges of the rollers will leave indentations on the pitch. This will compress those clippings into the clay and hold them down. If you've not put down enough water, then those clippings won't stick and the process didn't work. If that's the case, then you need to get rid of the clippings that are in the area and repeat the process, obviously adding a bit more moisture. This can happen on very hot days where the water you put on dries out quickly. Clippings, how much do you need? Well, if you've only got a couple of bare areas on your pitch, you'll only need a small bucket full. But if it's early on in the season and you haven't long renovated and you've got a minimal amount of grass cover, then you'll need a lot of clippings, 4 or 5 garbage bins full. They're often hard to get. You can get them off the wicket you've been cutting, the rest of your wicket table, or at the start of the season you might try and get some from a bowling club or from the outfield. Once you've got the clippings, it's important to dry them out, so leave them on a concrete area in the sun, and we'll turn those clippings so they don't get mouldy and they'll dry out and go a straw colour. Getting them into a straw colour then gives the appearance that those bare areas have got grass cover. They will therefore dry out less quickly than the bare soil, and it'll give the pitch a really good appearance for the players, and it's a nice hard flat wicket. So it's a cosmetic thing as well as protecting the ball when it hits the surface, also reducing the drying out of the exposed clay. Weather conditions play an important role in this. Certainly if it's winding, it's not a good time to clip up. Once you've clipped up and used the wicket, you'll need to then remove all those clippings because they're organic content, and if they stay on the wicket, it's not good for the pitch. And if you go to grass up the second week of the game and you haven't removed those, then you won't be able to stick new clippings to your pitch. Marking up the crease is putting the finishing touches to the pitch. So generally it would be done on a Friday, the day before the game, but if weather conditions aren't favourable, you could do it on the Thursday or even the Wednesday. Try not to leave it till Saturday morning because it can be a time-consuming job, especially if you're doing it for the first time or two. It tends to take a lot longer. So earlier on at the start of the preparation, you could put the string line out on the edges of your pitch, and so we'll use the string lines in the full length of the pitch to help us work out where our markings will go. There are many different ways to do it, but the way I prefer to do it is get the very ends of the wicket table, and then if, for example, it's 78 feet the wicket table, come in 6 feet from each end, and that'll then make it 66 feet. So what we're trying to do there is centre the pitch in the middle of the wicket table. Once we've got that, we'll put a peg in the middle of that position, so measure from the side of the pitch. If it's a 10-foot wide pitch, obviously come in 5 feet, that designates the middle, and 6 feet in from the very end of the wicket table. Put a peg in there at one end, measure 66 feet down to the other end, make sure it's the same distance in from the other end of the pitch, which would be the 6 feet in, if it's a 78 feet wicket table. That designates where your middle stump will go. Once we've got those two places, at one end we'll put down the marking frame. Where that peg is, the hole for the middle stump needs to go in. Align it and get the edges of your marking frame parallel with your string line. A good way to do this is with just a tape measure, and at the front and the back of that, make sure that we've got the same distance from the string line. Then you can mark up your end. It can be done by putting dots on that marking frame and then getting a stencil and using those dots for where the stencil goes. And then you can paint it up with a turf paint that is diluted to recommended levels, or I prefer to use a can of turf spray paint. It just gives the nice defined edges to your markings. Once you've done that, go down to the other end and repeat the process. You also need to put in your danger zone markings, which are 1 foot either side of the middle stump and 5 foot forward of the popping crease. Check with your competitions and get the diagram and the measurements of what is required. Mistakes that can be made is incorrect angling of your marking frame so that then it's heading in the wrong direction. Poor lines in that they're thick and thin. You can actually spill your can of paint or your bucket of paint, so you've got to be careful not to spill that and not to get drips from when you take the brush out. That all reduces the presentation. So take your time and get it right, and make sure that your measurements at the end you double check to make sure that the pitch is the right length and your other markings are all correct. Covering the pitch is an important part of the preparation. Hopefully the weather's fine and you don't need to cover the pitch except for when the local league regulations are, which are generally covering the pitch Friday night and taking them off Saturday morning. It's generally compulsory, but have a look at your regulations. But if we get adverse weather and rain, then covering the pitch is important. If we don't cover the pitch, obviously the pitch can get very wet and the games can get washed out, or your hard work in preparation becomes undone because of heavy showers on Thursday and Friday, and therefore you don't get a hard pitch, which otherwise you would have. The challenge with covers are that they can be very heavy, and if wind gets under them, can be dangerous. So covers are a challenge for curators, and it's handy to have numerous staff to put them down. There are different products to ease the putting down of covers, and certainly the easy cover makes it a bit safer and quicker. At our workplace we generally put down a single wicket cover and then a full wicket table cover. The benefit of this is that it not only protects the wicket but the rest of the wicket table, and greatly reduces the chances of games being washed out. So use covers to your advantage. It helps you then monitor the amount of moisture in your pitch, and then you can control that you're not getting excess water on your pitch. Early on in the preparation, if you're due to get a bit of rain, you might leave the covers off and that rain lands evenly across your wicket table and assist you in wetting up the pitch. But certainly later in the preparation, if it's adverse weather, covers work very well. Hessian are required underneath the single cover, or if you've just got one cover, Hessian underneath that stops sweating and keeps the pitch dry. If you didn't put the Hessian down, you can get a heavy dew underneath the covers or sweating, and this can put more moisture onto the pitch than desired. So use covers to your advantage and try and have a system that works for you to use them safely and efficiently. A single cover is handy as well as a full pitch cover, but your competitions will have rules regarding what you're required to do.